So you took 20 years, almost, to make this movie. This is the best you could do? If you're wondering about my credentials, just remember that at one point I was the 4th most prolific author on the Artemis Fowl fanfiction website. My username was Future Mrs. Fowl, if that tells you anything, and this is my secondary account for when I lost the password to the first one. The fanfiction division of the site has since been abandoned, and the Wayback Machine doesn't have enough of the site preserved to prove it, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. I was there, Gandalf.
I was there 3,000 years ago.
This video contains spoilers for all the Artemis Fowl books, and of course, the movie. Artemis Fowl is a book series by Owen Colfer. It's pronounced Owen. I don't know how people keep messing this up, how interviewers keep messing this up. It was literally part of his branding at one point. Like, did I hallucinate that? I'm pretty sure I didn't. It's pronounced Owen. Anyway, Artemis Fowl, the title character, is a genius, an heir to a multi-million-dollar crime empire, and discovers a technologically advanced race of fairies living under the earth. He's also 12 years old. The book series was wildly successful, holding its own against other giants of the early 2000s like Harry Potter and Maximum Ride. Remember Maximum Ride? Pepperidge Farm remembers. The first book was published in 2001, and 7 other books followed. There's a follow-up series about Artemis's younger brothers. There are graphic novels, now a new set of them. There are companion books that nobody cares about anymore, official music videos that have since been deleted and re-uploaded by dedicated fans, and of course, the movie. You don't have to be a filmmaker to know that this movie is absolute garbage. It wasn't even like Lord of the Rings in that it's not 100% faithful to the source material and is still a good movie on its own. Return of the King won Best Picture. No, Artemis Fowl was a terrible adaptation and a terrible movie itself. But this video is not going to be about how bad the movie was, and it was bad. Instead, I'd like to talk about why this movie was especially heartbreaking for fans, the emotional whiplash that this movie caused, and why we felt such betrayal about the movie. There were a few key things leading up to the movie that seemed really promising, reasons that fans could get excited. So let's talk about why fans thought this movie might really be something great, and why the betrayal cut so deep. Part 0, an active fan site. Before I get into the meat of things, I'd like to talk about Artemis Fowl Confidential, or AFC. It's more or less the official fan site for all things Artemis Fowl. It's been running and active since 2005, spearheaded by Matt Wall. All hail our most respected webmaster. While some of the site absolutely has not been touched in years, there are links on the homepage that are over a decade old. Considering it's been run almost entirely by one person, I'm not going to complain. This is where my beloved fanfiction site was hosted, but alas, no longer. Even in the years between the final Artemis Fowl novel and the first novel in the Fowl Twins series, almost 7 years without any new Artemis Fowl content, the site was still updating with giveaways, interviews, and more. Matt's dedication to Artemis Fowl has absolutely helped this fandom stay alive, so thank you, Matt. Part 1, the Artemis Rocks Tour 2011. In 2011, Owen Colfer went on a book tour of North America to promote the latest book in the Artemis Fowl series, which at the time was the Atlantis Complex. He visited several cities, including New York City, St. Louis, Chicago, LA, Phoenix, and Naperville, Illinois, with an actor portraying Artemis himself. They visited touristy parts of each city, as well as doing meet and greets with fans. The actor's name, after much scouring of the internet, seriously, this took me days to find, is Matthew Taylor. Matthew, if you ever see this, you're the real Artemis Fowl in my heart. At the time that this book takes place, Artemis is about 16, so this actor could have been a little too old to portray Artemis in the movie, especially of the first book. But Matthew Taylor, the actor, did such a good job portraying Artemis that it was clear that whoever casted him really knew how Artemis acted, what he was like, and how he behaved, so whenever the movie got made, they'd know what to look for. Right? This tour, much with Owen Colfer's previous 2009 Fairies, Fiends, and Flatulence tour, was wildly successful. 2 music videos with songs by Josh Fix were even released to promote the tour. So much love went into this tour that it really gave fans hope that a movie wouldn't be far behind. On a personal note, I was 14 in 2011, and I was actually grounded from the computer at the time that this tour was announced, so I didn't know that it happened until after it happened. They even came to a city that was within driving distance of my house. And when I found out that I missed it, I cried and I cried and I cried, and I don't think I've ever emotionally recovered from that. I also want to say that they did Naperville, Illinois really dirty. Like, they went to touristy parts of each city, like Times Square and the St. Louis Arch and Alcatraz, and then they get to Naperville and they're like, I guess we'll go to the American Science and Surplus store. Like, they couldn't just film the actual stop they made meeting fans. They had to do something, I guess. So they're like, well, this is the only non-A-list city on the tour, so I guess we'll do this. Woo! Part 2. Big Hollywood names attached to this movie. In 2013, it was announced that Harvey Weinstein and Robert De Niro would be producers of the Artemis Fowl movie made by Disney. This was huge because at the time, we didn't know that Weinstein was a problem. Robert De Niro was basically everyone's picture-perfect casting for Commander Root as well, and it should be noted that even in 2013, the plan was to make a movie out of the first and second books combined. In 2015, it was announced that Kenneth Branagh was going to direct the film. Finally, in 2017, Judi Dench was cast for an unspecified role, yet another huge name attached to this movie, and yet still no movie. So let's skip ahead. Part 3, the scene in Ho Chi Minh City. So the teaser trailer that they released revealed what fans could immediately recognize as the first scene of the first book, where Artemis and Butler go to Ho Chi Minh City, or Saigon as the locals still called it, to get a copy of the fairy holy book from a poisoned fairy. This bit of the teaser was later expanded into an entire scene that was released before the movie came out. It was so well done and true enough to the books that fans were excited to see what else the film was going to include. Part 4, Fowl Manor. Most of the first book takes place at Fowl Manor, which is canonically the longtime residence of the Fowl family in Ireland. Disney built the entire thing. Never mind that it looks like the European equivalent of a McMansion, but whatever. The entire exterior exists outside of London. Artemis Fowl Confidential even said that the mere fact that Fowl Manor has been built, instead of being a CGI outer with interiors filmed in sets, speaks volumes about Disney's thoughts on turning the Artemis Fowl series into a movie franchise. The fact that the manor has been built in this way indicates they're hoping to have multiple uses out of it. This was probably the biggest glimmer of hope that we had, that Disney believed in this movie and that it was going to be a success. So with all this exciting stuff and promising stuff happening over the last decade, surely this movie wasn't going to be another Aragon or Percy Jackson or Hitchhiker's Guide, right? This movie was cursed. So despite all the cool stuff that seemed to be coming down the road, the Artemis Fowl movie for almost 2 decades seemed destined to fail. Why? Part 1, Development Hell. This movie was in production limbo for a long time. I mean, a long time. So Miramax bought the rights to this film in 2001. I found one source that said even like before the book was published, and I don't know if that's true, but in 2003, Owen Colfer said he was skeptical about a screenplay that had already been written. The film kept getting pushed back again and again. The cycle of this movie seemed to be like, announcement gets made, fans get really excited, nothing happens for like a year or more, and then fans get aggravated, and then another announcement gets made, so on and so on. Multiple directors had also been attached to this movie over the nearly 2 decades of development hell. After Disney dropped all ties with Harvey Weinstein for obvious reasons, the film was set back even further. Part 2, the final setback. So the film got made, finally. It was originally planned to be released in August 2019, but there were problems and reshoots, and there was one final pushback to May of 2020. As we all know, theaters were not open in May of 2020 for reasons, so Disney pushed it back again, adding insult to injury to Disney Plus in June. Now, I'm not claiming to know how things work at Disney Plus, but it's really telling when Mulan, Raya and the Last Dragon, and other films coming down the pike are on the Premier Access list, which means you have to pay the additional $30 fee to watch them, but Artemis Fowl was not on this list. Something straight to DVD sequel joke insert here.
Coming soon to own on DVD and
Part 3, the one good thing. So remember that really awesome scene in Ho Chi Minh City with the fairy Bible and the pixie that they like filmed and edited and put in the trailer and the cheese? Yeah, it didn't make it into the movie. It's a deleted scene. It's on YouTube, and most of the top comments are about how this is the one scene where Artemis is actually written like he talks in the books, and it's the scene that they scrapped. The other half of the top comments are also about how Artemis would never fly economy, which is true, and is also another gross oversight that indicates that the writers have absolutely no idea what this character is like. Speaking of which, Part 4, a fundamental misunderstanding of the source material. So let's start with the main character, Artemis himself. In 2017, a casting call for Artemis was published, and here's what it said. Seeking the lead role of Artemis, must be 5'3" or below, any ethnicity, but must have or can do Irish accent. At first glance, Artemis could be mistaken for a rather ordinary child with little athletic ability, but his eyes reveal a flickering of intelligence, inquisitive and possessing both academic and emotional intelligence. He is highly perceptive and good at reading people. Most importantly, Artemis is warm-hearted and has a great sense of humor. He has fun in whatever situation he is in and loves life. No previous acting necessary. So a lot of this casting call is pretty good. Makes sense. Until we get to this. Artemis is warm-hearted and has a great sense of humor. He has fun in whatever situation he is in and loves life. No previous acting necessary. What Artemis Fowl are we talking about? This is not the Artemis Fowl that I read about. This is not the Artemis Fowl that I've come to expect. This isn't even the Artemis Fowl that he becomes and grows into by the end of the series. Who wrote this? Ask anybody who has read the books. He is the anti-hero of this story. He is an arrogant, he can't relate to people, he thinks he's above everyone. He literally kidnaps the other main character of the story, Holly Short. He's kind of just generally a twat, but he has fun in whatever situation he's in. He's warm-hearted. He has a great sense of humor. I think we all knew that the movie was doomed when we read this. Remember when 7-time Oscar-winning actress Judi Dench was announced to be in this movie in 2017? Yeah, it turns out she's playing Commander Root. Commander Root in the books is an old-school cop. He smokes cigars, he's a strict commanding officer, and is also a man. Now, casting an originally male character as a woman isn't inherently bad. Diverse casting is great. Here's the problem. The other main character, Holly Short, is the first female officer of her division. This is a really, really big deal in the books, and it is central to how Holly interacts with her coworkers, her superior officers, and why she does the things that she does. By casting Judi Dench as Commander Root, you have eliminated half of Holly's character. The other half was eliminated by poor writing of the character in general. Holly in the film is a shell of the character that she is in the books, as is everyone else. Did they just cast Commander Root as a woman, like for woke points or whatever? I'm not going to get into Butler's casting because I feel like that's less of a fundamental misunderstanding of the source material and more so just being ignorant to what his casting implies. I'm also not going to get into Holly's casting because while the book describes her as having dark nut brown skin, the graphic novel already made her appear not that way. But if they wanted diverse casting, it's sitting right in front of you. And again, I'm not going to get into the cinematic problems with this movie, as many other people have greatly discussed in detail as to why this was bad. But it truly seems like the writers only had a vague understanding of the plot of the first book and knew that the second book was about rescuing his father and didn't go beyond that. I could speculate that Disneyfying is the problem, but this problem goes way beyond Disney. Percy Jackson and Aragon were 20th Century Fox before it was bought by Disney. The Giver was the Weinstein Company. The Golden Compass was New Line Cinema. We could sit here all day and name terrible film adaptations, but it seems like studios just have no idea what makes children's fiction so fascinating. Waiting for nothing. I think what makes this whole thing, especially heartbreaking is that Owen Colfer is 100% behind the changes made in the movie. I mean, yeah, I'd drink stagnant mosquito adaptation water too after being stranded in the development hell desert for 18 years. At least Rick Riordan revels in how bad the Percy Jackson movie is. Revels in it. While I can't put the blame on Owen Colfer, and certainly not the actors, because honestly the acting in this movie was pretty good despite the script being nonsensical, the higher-ups in production absolutely need to be held accountable for not only convoluting the source material almost beyond recognition, but also failing to create a decent product with the millions of dollars that went into production. A few days after the movie was released on Disney+, my old Artemis Fowl fanfiction friends and I, now all 20-somethings, got together on a Zoom call and watched what we knew would be a train wreck of a movie. And oh boy, it was a train wreck. I wish I'd gotten a screenshot of all of us talking, but I wouldn't use faces without permission, and I was really just too distracted by seeing all these people together for the first time. When I was 12, I even wrote a short story about all of us flying to the same city to watch it together, and my plan was to fly out to where most of them live until the thing happened. We had waited so long for this movie.
I did my waiting! 12 years of it!
And we're still disappointed. The story of the Artemis Fowl movie is a bittersweet one. After years of what seemed to be promising updates, a few minor problems snowballed into a full-fledged dumpster fire of a movie. The fandom, once booming with tweens and teens in the bronze age of the internet, dwindled, as most fandoms do. Unlike Harry Potter, which even today still grows exponentially, even with the author shooting herself in the foot every few months, the Artemis Fowl fandom grew tired of waiting and aged out of the content, despite the books really holding up well over the years. Who knows what the future holds for Artemis Fowl? Maybe in a few years it'll turn into a TV series like Colfer's other book, Half Moon Investigations, which is honestly a cute little TV show. But for now it seems like our boy will be confined to the prisons of mediocrity. Just another nostalgic property, kindling added to the dumpster fire of Hollywood's inability to come up with original content.